Welcome to my channel, where the scariest stories come to life. Before we dive into today's chilling tale, make sure to hit the subscribe button and turn on notifications, so you never miss a story. Now, let's get into the horror. I was about 7, and like most young kids, I never wanted to sleep when I was supposed to, constantly in and out of my bed for water, to go to the bathroom, or to tell my parents in the living room that I couldn't sleep, hoping they'd let me watch a little more TV. After about the fourth "I want water," I finished my cup, and my mom playfully chased me to my room, but stopped halfway when my back was turned. As I entered my room, I saw my dad in my closet with the widest smile on his face, ear to ear, teeth and all. Unnatural is the only way to describe it. It just wasn't humanly possible for someone to smile that big. I stopped in my tracks, and he just looked at me. He didn't move. He just stared, almost like he was going to jump out at any second. Confused and scared, I turned and jogged back to the living room to tell my mom to tell dad to stop scaring me. As I turned the corner, I saw my mom and dad sitting on the couch with angry looks on their faces. "What is it now?" they asked. I didn't know what to make of it. I just started crying. I'm 21 now, and it still gives me chills, like someone pouring ice cubes down my back, just thinking about it. My mom recently brought it up while I was cleaning my room and asked if I remembered why I had wanted this room so badly. That memory had been buried deep in my mind, but when she asked, it all came flooding back. I remember it like it was yesterday. Was this a doppelganger, a figment of my young imagination, or something sinister, trying to mess with me by looking like my dad? This all started in 2021, just when the pandemic first began to die down in my area. At this point, the girl I was with, whom I'll call Faye for the purposes of this story, and I had been together for about 3 years. One day that spring, one of my friends came to me and asked who the girl was that they had seen me with at the store. I was obviously confused, as I hadn't left my block that day, but my friend didn't buy it. He genuinely believed he had seen me with another woman. Then other people started coming up to me, picking up conversations we had never started, bringing up things we had never talked about. It started getting really weird. I'm pretty sure the only reason Faye didn't believe the stories was because, one day, my mom was bringing her home from work since I had suddenly fallen very ill and was unable to drive. On a side note, being suddenly stricken ill is something that happens when other people you know see your doppelganger. They stopped at a gas station my family frequented, and she saw my twin. Of course, both my mother and Faye knew I was at home in bed, sick, and I was actually on the phone with Faye at that very moment. She had called to ask if I wanted or needed anything. But sightings of my dark double continued for almost 2 years before the doppelganger disappeared as suddenly as he had appeared. To this day, I still have people I've never met come up to me and act like they know me, though it happens far less frequently now. When Faye and I broke up, a lot of the bizarre things seemed to go away with her. Faye is Cajun and related to a good many swamp witches from the bayou. Also, her mother apparently offended the spirit of Marie Laveau by performing some kind of ritual near the infamous witch's mausoleum. That may or may not be true, but one thing that cannot be disputed is that dark things are attached to Faye and the other women in her family. One night, I was doing my makeup and listening to music when I suddenly heard my name. I thought it was coming from the music, so I turned it off. Then I heard my mom, at least, I thought it was my mom, calling my name. I heard someone running down the hall and suddenly realized I was alone in the house. Panicking, I rushed to lock the door. A moment later, my mom started banging on the door, telling me to open it. But I knew it wasn't her. If it was really my mom, she would have just kicked the door down. I started crying, frozen in fear. For 2 hours, the banging continued. Then, just as suddenly as it started, it stopped. Shaken but trying to move on, I went back to doing my makeup with the door still locked. Later, I posted a picture of my finished look on Instagram. Not long after, I got a DM from someone who had seen the picture. They told me they could see an old woman outside my window in the background. Terrified, I rushed to close my blinds. But when I looked outside, I saw her. She was standing there, crying and begging to be let in. I shut the blinds and forced myself to go to sleep. The next morning, my mum came home from work, and I told her everything that had happened. It never happened again. I'm a 21-year-old woman living in a town of about 50,000 people. Over the last year, people have come up to me at work and asked if I just got a new job. Confused, I always just say no. A few months ago, my mum called me and asked if I was at our local pet store, where my stepdad was shopping. I told her no, and she sent me a picture, one that even I thought was me. I looked at the photo, wondering if I had lost a bit of weight. I actually thought I looked good. Then I asked her where the picture was from, and she told me my stepdad had just taken it while shopping. Apparently, he thought it was me, walked up to her, and started talking, only to realize it wasn't me. Here's where it gets weird. I have deep self-harm scars, and the girl in the photo had the same scars. I also have a snake tattoo on my right arm, so did she, same style and everything. She was even wearing the exact same glasses I wear daily. And on top of that, she was dressed in an outfit I'd worn before. Now I have this picture of a woman who lives in my town and looks scarily like me. I want to meet her. I started asking people if they knew her name, explaining that I seem to have a doppelganger. Someone told me her name sounds like Carrie, but it isn't. I just can't remember what the woman who came into work a few weeks ago said her name was. I don't know if I'm losing my mind, but there are just too many coincidences. I'm a micro-celebrity on TikTok. Do I have a stalker who's obsessed and wants to be me? Or maybe an old friend who's been following my life? I know I probably sound crazy, but even I thought this woman was me at first. It's been weighing on my mind for months. Has anyone else ever had something like this happen to them? Around 15 years ago, when both of my kids were toddlers, I was putting them to bed one night. My son was adamant about wearing his favorite red race car pajamas. I happily obliged, helped him change into them, and tucked him into bed. Afterward, I sat down at my kitchen table with a friend who had come over to chat and catch up. The way my apartment was set up, you could see my kids' bedroom doorway from the kitchen table. We had been talking for a while when we were suddenly interrupted by the sound of my son screaming. We both turned to look at the bedroom doorway, and there he was, standing there, loudly crying and shrieking. But he wasn't wearing his red race car pajamas. He was wearing his green pajamas with airplanes on them. Everything inside me was screaming that something was wrong. The hair on the back of my neck stood on end, and a cold shiver shot down my spine. My friend and I stared at each other, wordlessly, for a moment. We both knew my son couldn't change his pajamas by himself. When we looked back at the doorway, he was gone. Panicked, we ran to his bedroom. There he was, tucked into bed, sleeping peacefully in his red race car pajamas. My friend, shaken, asked if I had seen him standing there in his green airplane pajamas. I confirmed that I had. Freaked out, my friend left. That night, I slept on my kids' bedroom floor to make sure nothing happened to them. To this day, my friend and I still talk about it. It's one of the craziest things that has ever happened to me. My son, of course, doesn't remember any of it, but he loves hearing the story of how his doppelganger scared the crap out of us. This story isn't as crazy as some others here, but it freaked me out at the time. For context, this happened between 2010 and 2011, when I was 18 and my sister was 13 or 14. Our city's baseball team had won the World Series that year, and my family, mom, dad, my sister, and I went downtown for the celebratory parade. We arrived about 15 minutes before the parade started and managed to find a decent spot right up front. Being an avid people watcher, I began scanning the sea of spectators. That's when I noticed a girl about my sister's age standing directly across from us. At first, she was turned away, talking to her family, but when she faced the street again, I froze. She looked exactly like my little sister, who was standing right beside me. And I don't mean just a general resemblance. My sister is a skinny, white, blonde girl, so we've seen other girls who look somewhat like her over the years. But this was different. They were mirror images of each other. She even had the same glasses, the same t-shirt, and the same colored jeans. The only difference was that this girl had her hair pushed back, whereas my sister always let hers hang in her face. For a moment, I was speechless. Then I got my parents' attention and pointed her out. They turned to look, and I could see the shock on their faces. They agreed with me immediately and nudged my sister. At that exact moment, the other girl also noticed my sister. They just stared at each other in silence. The weirdest part? The girl's parents noticed our staring too. They didn't acknowledge us, but I know they saw it. I could tell they were thinking the same thing we were. I had my digital camera with me, so I discreetly zoomed in and took a picture. I knew no one would believe us otherwise. The zoomed-in picture was even freakier. It looked like I had taken a photo of my actual sister. The parade started soon after, and for a moment, we turned our attention to that. But when I looked back across the street just a few minutes later, the girl and her family were gone. We never saw them again. Now, here's the part that really unsettles me. That evening, I uploaded all the parade photos to a Facebook album, including the picture of my sister's doppelganger. I captioned it something like, "You may think this is Brenna, but it's not. Isn't this freaky?" I remember people commenting on it, shocked at the resemblance. But a few years later, I was telling a friend about the experience and went to the album to show them the picture. It was gone. All the other photos from that day were still there, except for that one. I suppose Facebook could have removed it for some reason, but why only that one photo? It didn't make sense. I know this story isn't as extreme as some, but to this day, my sister and I still remember how weirded out we were. It was one of the strangest things we've ever experienced. Thanks for sticking around till the end. If you enjoyed the story, don't forget to give the video a like and leave a comment with your thoughts. And if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss a terrifying tale. See you in the next one.